Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. The case that I'm going to be looking into today is the mysterious disappearance and then, well, you'll find out as we get through it, but it's the case of Melanie Hall. And she vanished one day and nobody still really knows, like, properly what happened to her, who did it. So let's jump in. Melanie Hall was born on the 20th of August in 1970. And her father was called Stephen and her mother was called Pat. Now, she was quite an intelligent girl. Before she went missing, she had just graduated from the University of Bath with a degree in psychology and sociology. She wanted to really make a difference in the world, and that is what she strived for. Now, she did actually work as a clerk in a hospital, which was the same hospital that her mum worked at. I believe that her mum helped her to get the job, something like that. And she'd worked there, I think, for like a year at this point, and she had met a doctor there who was called Philip, and I believe they'd been dating for about a month. Now, she had plans. She was hoping to get her own little place within the next, and move into it within the next like 6 weeks. She was just loving life at the moment and had all these different plans of what she was going to do. Her mother and father would describe her as being full of promise and just being so vibrant and such a lovely girl. She was the kind of person that would lift everyone up and just sort of the light of your life kind of thing. Now, on the day in June of 1996, she'd actually arranged with her boyfriend, Philip Carbaum. I apologise if I've said that surname wrong. I probably have. I'm useless. I'll put it up in text so that you can see how wrong I've said it. But yeah, they were going out. She was staying over at his house basically, and they'd arranged that. So her mother dropped her off. And this was on the 8th of June in 1996. Now, I believe that they had a barbecue with some friends, had a really nice time, and then some of them decided that they were going to go on a night out. So off they went, and they ended up at a place called Cadillac's, which was a nightclub in Bath. They were having fun, having drinks. I think there were 4 of them total, so obviously Melanie and Philip, and then 2 friends. But when Philip went to the toilet, so when he came back out of the toilet and went back into sort of the dance area, he saw Melanie dancing pretty closely with another guy. He didn't know who this guy was, and he was upset by it. So he decided that he was going to go outside, sit in the car, have a fag, see whether Melanie would even notice that he was gone and come and join him and, I don't know, maybe apologise or whatever, and, explain as to why she was dancing quite closely with this other guy. So he's sat outside in the car waiting, and Melanie doesn't come out. I don't know if she didn't notice or what. If she didn't see him come out of the bathroom, she's not going to notice that he's gone to the car, I suppose. So, I don't know. But I don't know how long he waited, but he thought, oh, screw this, I'm leaving. And he left. But bearing in mind, Melanie was out with 2 other friends. Of course she was. She didn't, she was supposed to be staying at his house. So, I don't know, her mother wouldn't be expecting her home because she was staying at Phil's. Okay? So anyway, back inside the club. Eventually, after a couple hours, her friends decide to leave as well. But they figure that Philip's still there and that Melanie has a ride, has someone to go home with and somewhere to go. She could, of course, catch a taxi and get back to home. Her mum wasn't expecting her, but that wouldn't matter. She still could get in. Or maybe she could even have gotten to Phil's and, asked what was going on and apologised or whatever. Either way, they thought that he was still there. And so they didn't leave her on her own in their eyes because they didn't know she was on her own. So off they go. I actually think that they had an argument. Wait. Everything I just said was a load of crap, wasn't it? Because I just realised I think they had an argument. So guess what? When he came out, he pulled her up on it, had an argument with her, and sat and waited in the car, so she will have known he was in the car. Just ignore everything I just said. Well, not everything, just that bit. Now, the last confirmed sighting of Melanie was at 1:10 a.m. where she was sat on a stool near the bar. And this was obviously on the 9th of June in 1996 at that point. And then Melanie was never seen again. There have been potential sightings of her, we'll get into that. But like confirmed sightings and whatnot, you know, there isn't any. And her mum didn't know anything about it because she wasn't due home. She only realised when her car, I believe her car, she'd left it at work. Probably because she would have driven to work. Then her mum gave her a lift to Phil's. She didn't really need the car until she would have gone back to work on the Monday. So the car was sat and she left a note on it saying, please contact me whenever. Anyway, she didn't turn up to work. Everyone knew that was unlike her. So her parents did actually report her missing on the 11th of June. Now the police launched a massive investigation into all of this. And of course, they looked into the family, they looked into the friends, they looked into Philip. A lot of the time it is the person closest to you, and a lot of the time it is your significant other. However, they did rule Philip out as a suspect eventually, so his line of inquiries, you know, he was ruled out. So he had nothing to do with this, and he was absolutely devastated as to what had happened to Melanie, that she'd gone missing. So a £10,000 reward was offered out. She was put on crime watch. The police spoke to all different people. They interviewed like thousands of clubbers, thousands of them. But there was just no sign of her. There were witnesses that did come forward that said that they may have seen Melanie. Now, these are not confirmed sightings. Somebody said that they saw her on Walcott Street at about 2 a.m. She was arguing with a man. Well, it was a woman that was blonde and matching, similar to her description, arguing with a man. There was another witness that claimed to see her leaving the club with a man. But again, these are unconfirmed sightings. They're not confirmed to have certainly been Melanie. Now, the years would pass by. The police investigated. And there was, like I said, loads of things done. Loads of interviews. They dredged the rivers, whatever. They just couldn't find anything, any sign of her. And the hope of her parents was sort of dwindling more and more. You know, the longer it was that nobody had heard of Melanie or even seen her or anything. And they did actually request in 2004, it was the 17th of November, that she was officially declared as deceased. Which you can do so after so many years of a person leaving no trace, like no social security, activity, no bank activity, no nothing. So she was declared as deceased. And there wasn't really much in the case until October the 5th in 2009. Now, there was a worker working off the M5, like near Junction 14, and he was clearing away vegetation and debris, just clearing up a bit, and he discovered a black bag that had this rope tied to it. So he thought it was a bit odd, and I guess he looks into it, because then he finds that it's actually got bones inside of it, and he believes them to be human bones, so he calls the police. Now, there was actually a pelvis bone, a thigh, and a skull in there, but the rest of the body was never found. There was the blue rope, like I mentioned. There was a set of Ford keys and also a piece of jewellery. Now, when Melanie went missing, she was wearing her grandmother's gold ring, which was like an heirloom, a family heirloom type thing. And it was very distinctive to the people who knew it. So when the police found a ring, they went to Melanie's family and they asked the question as to whether this was Melanie's ring. They said yes, and of course at that point they knew that that was Melanie's body. However, it wouldn't yet be confirmed because they didn't want to say for sure until they knew for sure. Because what if she just dropped the ring somewhere, or somebody had taken her and thrown the ring out and it wasn't actually her. Sadly, it would be confirmed later by dental records that this was the body of Melanie Hall. Which her parents really thought it was anyway. But yeah, it's really devastating because I guess all them years they were kind of hoping it would have been fading out, obviously, at that point, but at least now they knew, I suppose. Like, the not knowing is so awful. Not that anybody wants their child to be deceased and have been kidnapped and murdered. Of course they don't. But at least they know. They know something. They know that she is no longer here, and they have some of her remains. The rest of her was never found, sadly. And when they did an autopsy, she had massive blunt force trauma to the skull. Also, her jaw was fractured. Now, it was said that her remains looked like they had been gotten rid of very, like, in a rush. So whether somebody was joining that junction or coming off that junction from the motorway and just threw them there, I don't know. I mean, they sat there for so many years, nobody even noticed them, which is devastating since that's where they were. Whether a different part of the body was placed elsewhere, who actually knows? But yeah, they thought it was done in a hurry, so they quickly jumped on that and tried to get people to remember and around that area and around that time, whether anyone saw anything. And, you know, it sparked up the investigation again. Over the years, even in spite of finding her partial remains, the correct person is still yet to be found as to who did this to Melanie. There have been numerous arrests, and I'm not going to go into them because most of them they haven't stuck. You know, they were just arrested, released, whatever. There have been like 11 of them in total. There have been mentions of John Cannon, who was remember the Susie Lamplugh case? I think he was sort of surrounded by that. He was sort of, his name was thrown around her. There was also some mention of Levi Belfield, who is a serial killer. I've also seen something about a Batman. And he, I don't know, he left a Batman hat behind. And so that was why he was dubbed that. But they've tried to link to loads of people. Absolute loads. And just nothing ever seems to stick. Even some guy came forward and said that he had done it, but he didn't have the right details of the case. When they did a mental health assessment, it came back that he was probably not the killer. He was not in a fit state mentally to be claiming such things, and so he probably wasn't the killer either. In 2019, they actually managed to get DNA evidence off of the blue rope that she was, I think it was that tied the bag in. It is believed that Melanie was bound. I'm not sure whether they found that on her bones or whether it's just they're talking about the rope that was used to tie the trash bags together. But they found that very interesting because they said that it wasn't one long piece of rope. It was like 4 pieces of rope used in construction, and they tied them together to make a long piece, which would have only required 4 knots, but it had an extra 7 on as well, or something like that, or 7 total. So the police have said that that's pretty curious. I don't really know why. Maybe it was already knotted when he grabbed it. Who knows? Or he did them. I don't know why they think that's curious, but they do. And her parents have just tirelessly campaigned for justice. They upped the reward to £50,000. They've never given up hope on trying to find who did this to their daughter and why. And they just really hope that one day someone will come forward. And obviously, so does everyone else. You know, it's so heartbreaking that she was on a night out with friends, with her boyfriend, and then ended up sadly being left alone and vanished and then was killed. That is awful. Going back to the DNA that they found, the police are obviously really hopeful that, I think it was a partial DNA, that they may one day find the killer through that. Obviously, at the moment, I assume either they can't do very much with it, but we're really good with DNA now, so I don't really think that's the case. It's probably that this DNA hasn't been tracked down, it is not in the system, yada yada yada. So maybe one day through like genealogy and family entering their DNA into the system, Melanie's killer might actually be found, which I really hope so. You know, she was only 25 when she disappeared, and she had all these plans and everything, and it's just really sad and heartbreaking what happened to her. But yeah, I would like to know if you guys have any more information on it, or have any insight or opinions. Put them in the comments below. That is the video for today. So thank you for anybody that watched, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.